Good evening, Northern Colorado. This is Ron, K0AZA. I'm located in Fort Collins, and I'll be net control for tonight's NCARC TechNet. The purpose of the TechNet is to enlighten amateur radio operators on topics of a technical nature. We'll do our best to answer any technical questions for the benefit of all those who are listening. If there's a subject that's never been made quite clear to you, this is a great opportunity to find an answer. If anyone feels they have information that will help regarding that subject, please give your call sign and net control will call on you. This net may be interrupted at any time for emergencies or priority traffic. If you need to use the system for an emergency during the net, say break and give your call sign. We'll acknowledge you and suspend the net until you advise that you are clear. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? All licensed amateur radio operators with 70-centimeter privileges are encouraged to check into the net. NCARC club membership is encouraged but never required for participation. Check-ins are requested for the purpose of counting participation, and no checkout is required. This is K0AZA net control for tonight's NCARC TechNet. When checking in, please give your call sign slowly, first alphabetically, then again using the ITU phonetic alphabet along with your name and location. When checking in, please state if you have a topic that you'd like to discuss. Check-ins will be taken in groups of 3. When I've acknowledged the first group of 3, I'll move on to the next group of 3. I'll start by taking check-ins from Echolink. Anyone on Echolink, please call now. Moving on, I'll take check-ins from call suffixes alpha through Mike. Alpha through Mike, please call now.
Good evening, Ron. This is W0KJM Whiskey 0 Kilo Juliet Mike with a question for tonight.
K0MLG Kilo 0 Mike Lima Golf Marty near Wellington.
Whiskey 0 Lima Echo Echo India W0 LAI Chad and Stalin, no traffic.
Yeah, okay, let's hold up there. The net recognizes W0KJM, K0MLG, and W0LEI, and KJM. I've got you for the first question. Let's go ahead and move on with the next group of 3. Call now, please.
This is November 0 Echo Mike Papa, Greg in Fort Collins, with Debbie, Kilo 0 Delta Bravo Echo.
AE0KO Alpha Echo 0 Kilo Oscar, Brad in Wellington.
KF0 ODD Kilo Foxtrot 0 Oscar Delta Delta Paul in Bertha.
The net acknowledges N0EMP, K0DBE, AE0KO, and KF0ODD. Next group of 3, go ahead now.
Kilo Whiskey 5 Uniform Sierra Alpha KW5 USA Greeley Mobile, no traffic.
This is 5SGC Kilo 5 Sierra Golf Charlie Dave in Fort Collins, no traffic.
KF0G2H Kilo Foxtrot 0 Golf Quebec Hotel Camping Wellington.
With a question. Let's hold up there. That acknowledges KW5 USA, K5SGC, and KF0GQH. Somebody doubled with GQH, and all I heard was with a question. So if that station would come back now, please.
It was just me, Ron. K0TYU Kilo Delta 0 Tango Yankee Uniform Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Got you down. Next group of 3, please call now.
WB5TEX Whiskey Bravo 5 Tango Echo X-Ray Dale in Loveland.
The net acknowledges WB5TEX. Let's go ahead and open it up to all call suffixes. All suffixes alpha through Zulu. Please call now.
This is KB0YDN Kilo Bravo 0 Yankee Delta November. Eric, Pinewood, no traffic.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 0 Quebec Victor Mike Paul in Aurora with a question.
Kilo Papa Echo K0PE Dave, no traffic.
Let's hold up there now. The net acknowledges KB0YDN and KF0QVM. Dave, somebody was doubling with you, and I got your name but didn't get your call sign. So, Dave, if you could come back first, please.
No troubles. Kilo Zero Papa Echo, K0PE, in Fort Collins, and the name is Dave. I have no traffic.
Thanks, Dave. Got you down. And whoever doubled with Dave, if you could come back now.
Trot 0, Romeo Hotel Alpha, Chris out in Severn.
Chris, I got Romeo Hotel Alpha, but I missed the beginning of your call sign. Could you come back with that, please?
Sure thing. It's Kilo Foxtrot 0, Romeo Hotel Alpha.
Gotcha, KF0RHA. Okay, next group of 3. Please call now.
K0ART, Kilo 0 Alpha Romeo Delta, and in Fort Collins.
Whiskey 0 Alpha Sierra Papa, W0ASP, Terry in Berthoud. No traffic. Able to take questions.
Okay, let's hold up there. The station that ended ARD, I think that was you, but I missed the beginning of your call sign. Could you come back, please?
Yes, it's Kilo 0 Alpha Romeo Delta, K0ARD, and in Fort Collins.
Yeah, I thought that was you, Ann. Thank you. And also I acknowledge W0ASP. Hi, Terry. Next group of 3, please call now.
This is AE0CF Alpha Echo 0 Charlie Foxtrot Ben Fort Collins.
Okay, the net acknowledges AE0CF. Hi, Ben. Let's go ahead and move on. We can take check-ins later. So the first question was from Kyle, W0KJM. Kyle, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, my question was, I was asking to see if anyone had any experience or knowledge using any of the Meshtastic LoRa devices. I had acquired a few. I've been able to kind of mess around with them on my own, but just holding 2 phones in my lap, having one phone talk to the other without any infrastructure. While it is cool, it's not as cool as getting other people involved in it. So I was wondering if anybody else had any experience with any of the mesh nodes, or if anybody had any that I could try and link into and have some more fun with.
N0 EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, some of the guys over at World Amateur Radio Society are getting into that, and I think they actually have some repeaters up. They do lunch every Wednesday, and I want to talk later on about our lunch, which is this Wednesday. But they do lunch every Wednesday somewhere, and if you go to the WARS website, World Amateur Radio Society website, usually by Monday or Tuesday, so it might already be posted where they're going to do lunch this week. But there's some guys over there that are really getting into it deeply.
ODD?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, if you go to their WARS Discord page and get on that, they have a pretty good following on with Meshtastic. I've been trying to follow that myself, so I'm very interested.
Kyle, any follow-on or further questions on that?
No, I think that points me in the right direction. I'm going to start digging that way and seeing what I can find. Thanks, everybody, and back to net, W0KJM.
And Kyle, as you learn more about it, maybe you can come back and update the rest of us. It's something I've poked around at, but only poked enough to realize I know next to nothing about it. So we would appreciate that. Hey, Greg, while you are sort of had the floor, do you want to go ahead and talk about the lunch while I'm thinking about it?
Sure, thank you. First of all, one more thing for Kyle. If you get to the point where you want to put a node up at a high elevation with a clear view of Fort Collins, get a hold of me. Lunch. This is the week. The day after tomorrow, Wednesday, is the every other week lunch over here. That's kind of the Encart, Larimer County crowd. It's not a club event, but it's every other Wednesday at Perkins on West Eisenhower and Loveland. And the every other week is this week, Wednesday about 11:30. Everybody is welcome. And 0 EMP.
Any questions for Greg about the lunch on Wednesday? Okay, this is K0AZA net control for tonight's NCARC TechNet. Joe, KD0TYU, did you say you had a question or topic?
Well, thanks for taking the net, and I owe George one too. Last week was kind of a tough week for us, as you probably know, and we couldn't make it in to do this show, so I thank George for jumping in and helping me out with this thing. Yeah, I do have a question. I'm going to let this drop and I'll come back. I've got a super antenna, if you're familiar with it. It's nothing more than a roof rover coil. And I noticed when we were trying to use it, we it sits so low on the ground and stuff like that. So I'm thinking about raising it. And along with that, I'm thinking about going to raised radials on that. In other words, taking a wire and raising it up. Do I have to keep those at the same height as the bottom of the antenna, or can I let them droop a little bit? How does that work, if anybody's ever used those?
And 0 EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
So, radials laying on the ground are not resonant, so length is not critical. It'd be nice to have them close to a quarter wavelength line, but not necessary because they don't resonate. When your radials are up in the air, they have to be resonant. So they have to be quarter wavelength long. And the angle that they come down will affect the impedance of the antenna system. So if you've probably seen quarter wave or 5/8 wave CB antennas that have the radials coming down at about a 45-degree angle. That's to make it 50 ohms. If they're straight out from the antenna, it's a lower impedance, and if they're down at a steeper angle towards the ground, they're a higher impedance. So when you see those old CB antennas with the radials drooping down at an angle, that's to match the 50 ohms. So same thing will happen with your Wolf River coil, but your radials would have to be cut to a resonant length, and then the whole idea of the Wolf River coil is to be able to change the bands by moving the coil, so that's going to mess everything up. And 0 EMP.
Well, Greg, the problem that I have with that is that when it's sitting on the ground, I can run the radials off of that, and they're on the ground, and that works. But if I'm going to put this thing up even as little as 5 to 6 feet, they're just going to kind of either droop down, and if I thought, well, maybe you could run a wire down there and then tie to that, I still don't know how to use these on the ground because the base of the thing is 4 feet in the air or 5 feet in the air, whatever I decide to do with it.
Yeah, if you only have it up 4 or 5 feet, I would say run your radials down at a 45-degree angle down to the ground, and then run out the remaining length of the radials out along the ground, and that'll make them non-resonant, and you should be okay. And the part that's up in the air at 5 feet, unless you're up on 6 meters, you won't be near resonance, so I think you'll be good there.
Yeah, I'm looking at 20 or 40 or 10 or 15 or something like that. I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to go up to 6. But so I could raise that thing any way I want to. Put long wires out there, and I only need 2 of them, I think. And just run them down and then just run them out. Is that right?
Yeah, if you're only going up 4 or 5 feet, on HF, you should be perfectly fine with that.
Okay, that'll work. Thanks so much.
And 0 EMP.
K2AD, follow up.
Anybody else have
Question?
anything they want to add to Joe's question?
W0ASB comment.
And K2AD, I've got a follow-up.
Go ahead, Terry.
Hey, Joe, just if you're going to do that and move the radials down at 45 degrees and put them above the ground, on the ground, make sure to check the impedance before you transmit on it, because that's kind of a little bit of an ambiguous situation.
Well, for sure, I'm going to go ahead and test out the antenna before I actually start transmitting on it. But I just thought that'd be a good idea. I mean, the woofer recoil, it's a nice little rig, but it sits like 2 inches off the ground, and well, about 6 inches off the ground, and that's just not high enough, I don't think.
Well, Joe, the whole idea is to get yourself a good electrical counterpoise to the vertical, and that's where the radials interacting with the earth come into play.
I would tie them to the tripod, but the center post is fiberglass or plastic of some sort, so that gives me nothing. I guess, and like I said, I thought about actually running a wire down to the ground, but then that's even worse.
Well, Joe, frankly, I don't think that's even worse. If you have a wire from the bottom of your coil, essentially that would be the shield to the coax of that's driving the antenna to the earth, that's going to help.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give that a try then. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
But as Greg said, you need, if your radials are not on the earth and you have a number of them, you're going to have to resonate them.
Well, I could do either. I was looking probably at 20 meters at 16.5 feet to 17, and I thought that might do it. But, okay, well, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
W0ASP, back to net.
Does anyone have anything additional to add to this topic? Okay, let's move on. KF0QVM. Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, I was at the fox hunt event this past weekend, and in the Yagi that we made, we connected the driven elements, the two parts of the driven element together with that little piece of wire, and that confused me because my understanding of how Yagis work is that the two parts of the driven element need to be insulated from each other. So I'm wondering why we connected them like that. KF0QVM.
EMP.
NYY.
Well, Greg hit the PTT button first, so the floor is yours, Greg.
Thank you. The event happened to have occurred over here, so I'm familiar with the antennas, and if you didn't have that horseshoe-shaped or hairpin-shaped piece of copper wire bridging the two elements, the impedance would be far away from 50 ohms. I think it would be much less than 50 ohms. That's called a hairpin match, which is one way of matching a Yagi antenna to 50 ohms. If you just have a dipole out in free space and there's nothing near it, the impedance is about 70 ohms. But as you start putting other elements near it, like a reflector and one or more directors, that loads the antenna down and the impedance begins to drop and can be down around 35 ohms or even less without any type of matching. So one type of matching is the hairpin match that you saw with the tape measure Yagi. If you look at any of the Arrow antennas, he uses what's called a gamma match on all of his antennas on the driven element. And the purpose is the same, and there's other techniques as well, but the purpose is to try to get close to 50 ohms for the coax and 0 EMP.
NYY.
I have you checked in, Bart, and go ahead.
Roger, late check-in, and thank you. Paul, if you think of that hairpin as it's actually a part of a transformer. It's half a coil, half of one turn. You've got a quarter wave going in each direction, and you want the length of that quarter wave, it's a half wave because it's a quarter wave in each direction. You want the length of that to be, it's specified by the design of the beam. If it's longer than that or shorter than that, then the pattern on the beam changes a lot. So you're fixed to that length. And as Greg mentioned, with parasitic elements, first of all, dipoles like 73 ohms, and with parasitic elements, the impedance changes. And that hairpin acts like a partial coil between the two elements to bring the impedance back down to 50 ohms. So there you go. And you can adjust that hairpin a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, but in most cases, once they're close, the adjustment isn't huge. Once you've got the 5-inch length and it's soldered at the ends, it usually lands pretty close to working. And you can experiment with that if you want to unsolder it and slide it, or I've built antennas where I put the hairpin under 2 screws, and I can just loosen the screws and slide it back and forth to get the impedance matched without changing the pattern, if you will, of the Yagi without messing up the pattern. So, and 0NYY back to net.
Thanks, Bart. Did anyone else have anything else to add to this?
W0ASP with a comment.
Go ahead, Terry.
Well, having not seen the design, you have to take this information with a grain of salt. But my impression is that those U-turn hairpin matches are essentially a transmission line, and changing the impedance of the antenna element along that piece of transmission line. And that, of course, only works at a very few frequencies, very close to the resonance of the antenna.
Paul, did that answer your questions, or do you have any other follow-up questions to that?
Yes, that did. Thanks to all three of you that responded. I feel like I've got a pretty good understanding of it now. So thank you very much. KF0 QVM back to net.
Great, glad it was helpful. This is K0AZA, net control for the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club Weekly TechNet. Are there any late check-ins, additional comments, or other questions?
Easier shift.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was wondering about the last quarter weekend about those also attenuators. Just curious. It is using a fixed frequency oscillator in there to generate the offset, and I guess related to SDR radios, which you can't, they don't filter on the frequency that you're trying to listen to. What happens if you go several? I imagine most of those oscillators are not perfect sine waves, and you probably got some harmonics in it. But if you go to yet another harmonic, I wonder what the how those work with SDR radios.
W0ASP comment.
Go ahead, Terry.
When it comes to clocks and oscillators, I find that most SDRs actually like a square wave. And if you look at the Bodnar GPS disciplined oscillator that is very common in common use, it produces a DC offset square wave. And simply by putting a filter capacitor in there, you can make it a 0 plus or minus square wave. And many SDRs take that very nicely. However, there is an issue to worry about, and that is that the harmonics of the square wave, which are odd multiples of the fundamental, will mix with the receiver and produce additional noise into your receiver bandwidth. W0ASP.
I suppose in this special case is they're using it as the offset attenuator. You're trying to explicitly try to listen to one of those harmonics to see if, well, maybe not. I just haven't tried it. Just wondering if maybe the whole point of the problem is that you're overloading SDR anyway. I guess the fundamental or the frequency you're listening on is going to completely blow away the harmonics of not the harmonics, but the mixed offset in order to receive that lower powered attenuated signal. I don't know. I just throwing out maybe there's something weird going on there. Got to try at some point and see what it's like. This is easier CS back net.
And N0 EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, so again, this last rosin core took place in my outbuilding, and the project, there were two projects that went together. They built a tape measure Yagi, which was the antenna with the hairpin match, was the classic tape measure Yagi design for 2 meters. The offset attenuator has a crystal oscillator at 4 megahertz. So you could tune either up or down 4 megahertz and hear the mixer product coming through the attenuator, and then you had a potentiometer you could turn to adjust the signal strength of the mixed product. I did read through the manual, the instructions to it, and they did talk about if you're getting close to your Fox and the signal's really strong, you could look for other harmonics at 8 megahertz or 12 megahertz. So yeah, they did address that, and apparently that can be done. These weren't specifically designed to use with an SDR. People were using handhelds, HTs, regular Baofangs or whatnot with them this last Saturday. But you could use it with an SDR if you wanted to. And 0 EMP.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I was just wondering because on that website about those offset attenuators, they actually did have a section about SDRs and Baofangs actually are SDR type radios. At least that's how they process the signal internally. So that's why we're curious how well these things actually operate.
Well, they seem to work good Saturday. I think ideally you would have a receiver with some kind of an S-meter on it, either a bar graph or something, and the Baofangs don't have that, so people had to kind of just go on signal, starting to break up or get below the squelch level. But if you had a receiver with any kind of S-meter on it, it'd be a lot more useful.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm just a little worried about front-end overload SDRs. Whether or not that was an issue with the Baofang. That seemed to be implied by the website. Oh, anyway, sounds like that works okay. So very good. Easier CF.
Yep. Okay. Are there any other late check-ins, additional comments, questions, or other discussion before we close the net this evening?
W0ASP comment?
Go ahead, Terry.
Kind of a general warning I like to give to everybody. Digital receivers are very different beasts than analog receivers, especially when they are overloaded. Your analog receiver will get kind of muddy and the signal will sound kind of rough or distorted. Well, when you overload a digital receiver, all bets are off. You get nothing out of it that's reliable. W0ASP back to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Terry. Any other late check-ins, comments, or questions? Hearing none, this concludes the NCARC TechNet. Net Control would like to thank each station for their participation. We had a total of 20 check-ins tonight. This net will occur again next Monday at the same time on this repeater. This is K0AZA closing the net at 18:39 and returning the repeater to normal operation. 73, and good night, everyone.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.